have like a short little panel. No one wanted to finish up. You guys are so brave. Thank you for walking with us through ODR. We know it's not easy. You should celebrate. Give yourselves a hand. Okay. I should focus. Okay. Is that me? Okay, Simon Sinek, who wrote the book Start With Why, he has this quote: "Why is the compelling higher purpose that inspires us and acts as the source of all we do." And isn't like the first thing we do when we face disorientation is ask why? Like, why is there another mass shooting? Why another earthquake? Why did I get laid off? Why don't dating apps work, right? Like, we want to know why. And so asking why is so innate. It's so like valid. And if there's a compelling reason why this disorientation happened, then like we'll feel better. Like we might be okay with it. But here's the problem. There are decisions that are made or random acts that happen that turn our world upside down. And there might be, like we may never understand why it happened, right? Or maybe their compelling reason for why it happened, it doesn't really feel okay to us. Like it doesn't justify why we are experiencing our pain or why we experience our hurt. And so so we can't control this. So we always say at Westlight is we can't control the circumstances and the people out there, right? But we can only control us. And rather than asking why the disorientation happened out there in our circumstances and why people did what they did, maybe we need to ask, because we can only control ourselves, why this disorientation is happening in us. Like, I think I did a sermon where I was like, don't ask why, you're just going to get stuck. But that probably wasn't the best thing to say, right? Why is really a gift. Our curiosity to know why is a blessing from God. And he's inviting us to dig deeper and to ask why. Why are we experiencing the things that we're experiencing? He's inviting us to go deeper, and if we're followers of Christ, then Jesus is our why, right? He is our compelling higher purpose that inspires us and acts as the source of all we do. And so he may not have caused what happened, but he longs to guide us and to help us through our disorientation. Not back to orientation, but to walk us through with him to reorientation. And so the Apostle Paul wrote a letter to the church in Corinth because they were going through some disorientation. Like, our disorientation has been so bad, Kotz and I are like, man, we should go back to the church of Corinth. I mean, they had disorientation, but theirs was like not as bad as our disorientation, right? And so, but in the middle of his first letter to the church in Corinth is the chapter on love, where Paul describes what love is, and he talks about how important love is. And so at the end of that chapter, he writes, it's verse 13, "And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love." And I know I quote Richard Rohr all the time, but he describes the verse this way. He said, "Love is the source and goal, faith is the slow process of getting there, and hope is the willingness to move forward without resolution or closure." So Jesus, who is love, is our source and our goal, and he's inviting us to lean into our disorientation, to ask the question why, not why is that happening out there, but why is this disorientation happening here? Why are we feeling the feelings that we're feeling? Why are we thinking the thoughts that we're thinking? And when we do that hard and courageous work of asking why in us, oh my gosh, that creates space for Jesus to be our source and our goal. And we experience heaven, and we experience more intimacy with him. And he's inviting us to this love and space, especially if we are the ones who misstepped, especially if we are the ones who are the reason for the hurt and the pain that people might be feeling, if we're the reason for the disorientation. Because we need to learn that his love is not predicated on our successes and failures. I have to remind myself that all the time. that his love is unconditional. And when we can lean into that, oh my gosh, we'll know even more and more how great and how amazing and how unconditional his love is. And so we wanted to create a space for you today where we can ask the question, why? So hopefully if you received all your reflection cards or your reflection photos. And for those of you who are watching on Westlight Live, you can go to the link below on YouTube or go to our Church Center app and download a PDF. And you could look at the photos there. But these are just ways, kind of prompts or tools that we could use. They're yours to keep, to use in the future. Anytime you are in disorientation and you feel the waves coming, and they're supposed to help us understand like what the disorientation is happening, what's happening in us. I mean, we could say, oh, well, that guy's an idiot. But no, we want to go deeper than that. So imagine, I asked Jordan and Stan, imagine they look through the pictures, because sometimes I give directions and it's not even clear. Like, I gave directions to Stan and Jordan, and they're like, wait, what? So I thought it was good if we have an example so you know exactly what I'm talking about. So they're going to be our example. Imagine that they looked at the images themselves, and then what we're going to do is after about 5 minutes of individual reflection, you'll have time, if you choose to pair up with a friend, or maybe it doesn't even have to be the person next to you. Maybe if your close friend that you trust is across the room, you can go, hey, can we hook up? Can we be partners? And you can share what you've been reflecting on in that 5 minutes. Because this sharing, this naming and sharing is how we experience heaven together. This is the experience of experiencing heaven together. So, Jordan and Stan, you have just looked at these images. Think about your disorientation.
So the picture I chose was the one with the woman standing among the rocks, looking out over the waves and the trees, off to the trees. And I appreciate what Lori said about that there are things that we don't want to face. And so this picture reminds me of, I see myself where rocks and things represent stability. And so that's like orientation to me. But then I see ahead of me things that are uncertain, and that's like the waves. But the trees represent to me reorientation, or if you want to use the Corinthian, 1 Corinthians 13, that the faith is where you can stand on. So that's like orientation. Hope is where you have to go into disorientation because you don't see things. But love is where you can really experience the fruitfulness and bounty that just being in the rocks don't offer. So that's what this picture reminds me of. It reminds me of the series, but also reminds me that where I am oftentimes is I want to stay in orientation. I just want to stay in things I know.
Okay, so for me, 2023 has basically felt like a long season of disorientation, and not like one long thing, but it just felt like one hurdle would come, and then we get over that, and then another hurdle would come, and the hits just kept coming, right? And for me, usually in disorientation, I tend to catastrophize. So I like, this is all horrible, this is never gonna end, it's never gonna get better, I hate it, and I just wanna get out of the water and no longer be overwhelmed by the waves. So that's what I thought of when I saw the previous picture, the same one as Pastor Stan. That's like my normal what's another word for it? My normal attitude towards disorientation. I don't want to even be in the water, I just want to be on the outside and hope I never get hit by the waves. But in this season, in 2023, I felt like as the hits just kept coming, the image of the waves has kind of transformed in my mind a bit. And so my natural tendency, of course, is still to ask why. Why is this happening? Why won't the waves stop coming? But I think I've began to learn after 30 plus years of living, like, oh, this just happens. This is just life. Waves are natural. They're just always going to keep coming. And I'm never going to reach a point where I don't have to face any more waves, right? There's no Waikiki Beach where it's just calm, shallow waters all the time, which is exactly what I'd want. But since that doesn't exist, I'm starting to learn not to fight the waves anymore. And I think I've talked about my friend Rocio, who's encouraged me a lot to just ride the waves instead of fighting it. And in that, I've found like a sense of freedom, I guess. And so that's the next image that I chose. I feel like that's the image that God is inviting me to enjoy the water and enjoy the waves more. And waves don't always have to be this overwhelming and really scary thing, even if it feels like that at first. But instead, I can just rest in the knowledge that God will take care of me and that this wave will end. And though another one will come, that will also be temporary and that will also end. And I don't think I would have been able to have this mindset shift, of course, if I didn't experience this year, but also without all the resources that God has really like opened me up to and drawn me into this past year. So like I think of like my Fuel Up groups, our couples counselor, the prayer team here at Westlight has been a really huge support. Our families and really prioritizing like my rest and taking care of myself. All of those things have really helped me reframe the waves in my mind and remind myself that this too shall pass and I'll be okay on the other side of this wave because I am loved and held by my people. And so I aspire to hold on to that and experience more of the freedom and the joy that I see this child experiencing in this image.
Thank you for sharing, you guys. So now I'm going to ask Jordan to explain the directions because she's much more clear and concise. So go ahead. Explain what we're going to do.
Okay. So I think we touched on this. The purpose of the practice today is to give space and time for you all to honor your own experiences and your hearts. And, you know, at Westlight, we try to be inclusive here, so I'm going to try to tell these instructions in an inclusive way because I know some people are like my dad. They need very clear, specific instructions on what to do. And then there's my mom, what are instructions? Throw those out. You just do it. I'm like in the middle, like, I want guidance, but can you give me some space and just let me do my thing? So I know most of us fall somewhere in that spectrum. So I'm going to start with the very clear and specific directions. And if that's not you, the point of this exercise is for you. You could take what you want, ignore the rest. So step one, Dad, breathe. It's okay. This is not a test, okay? You can't fail. There's no right or wrong answers, no right or way to do this exercise. But like my mom said, first we're going to do individual reflection for about 5 minutes. I'll keep time. Don't worry about that either. I know some of you have already looked through the images, so you could take your time and do that again. Pick one that you feel drawn to. I think she mentioned online. They'll cycle through as well, or you could click on the link. And there's no way, there's no like a question to pick the right image for this exercise. It's just whatever you feel drawn to today. Maybe it evokes an emotion or a physical response. So I encourage you to take this time to like tune in to your body and your emotions and honor that and listen to that and just see, even if it doesn't make sense at first, if you feel drawn to it, just go with that one. Or you could do, I picked 2, so again, no right or wrong way to do this. But once you pick one, just take some time to take it in, observe it, what do you notice? And then if it's helpful, there are questions on the back that I'm sure most of you saw. That's just to help you kind of get started in exploring your thoughts and feelings around it. So if you don't need the questions, if you know exactly why you're drawn to that image and want to explore that, go for it. If you do want to use the questions, we encourage you to use like 1, maybe 2 of the questions. Don't try to answer all 3, just so that you have a lot of time and you're not rushing through things and you can really dig deeper into whatever's coming up. So after 5 minutes, I'll come back up and I'll let you know you could start transitioning to the second phase, which is going to be reflecting and sharing with others. So why do we always encourage you to share with others? She's talked about it, but it's a vital part of processing our feelings. We believe life is meant to be done in community, and because of that, we believe there's great power in sharing our experiences with others. So we met this week, and Pastor Stan was talking about understanding and experiencing a peach, right? So you can know and understand what a peach looks like, what it looks like when you cut into it, how it grows, etc. But until you taste it, you can't fully experience what it means to enjoy the peach, right? And so this is what we desire for each of you, to taste and see the goodness of a loving and safe community. And that's something that we can only fully experience when we put ourselves out there even just a little bit, and have someone catch us and experience that feeling. So that being said, I know that not all of us are external processors, and 5 minutes may feel very short. So if you're an internal processor and you're like, I need more time, in the second half, if you need to just take time for yourself and God still, that's totally fine. We do encourage you after the 10 minutes to still, during the week, maybe later today, still share with someone. It doesn't have to be in this 15 minutes. We just want to give space for that. But even if it's like writing it down and sharing what you wrote later, we encourage you to still share with another person. But if you are ready, or if you are an external processor and you're wanting to share with people, during the second portion, we invite you again to get, like my mom said, get in a group of 2-3 max, that are with people that are also ready to share, and each person will take a turn sharing about the image that they reflected on, what came up for them, if you answered any of the questions, whatever's coming up for you. And as each person shares, we encourage the rest of the group to give their full attention to the speaker without giving advice or even speaking. You can listen and affirm with your eyes and nodding your head. Let them know you are with them with your body language, but try to let them do all the talking. If you feel compelled, there's the fuel up cards in there. Try, for the purpose of this exercise, try to stick in quadrant 1. This is really just for that person to have space to share. So if you don't say anything at all, perfect. If you need to, quadrant 1's there for you. So that portion we have 10 minutes. We've given you 10 minutes, so that means each person gets like 3 to 5 minutes to share. And that's probably longer than you think, so don't feel rushed when you're talking. And then once the 10 minutes is up, Pastor Stan will share, let you know it's up, and then transition us to a time of worship. Okay, so if I lost you, Mom, come back. 5 minutes of individual reflection. Pick a picture, spend some time reflecting. Step 2, 10 minutes of sharing with 1 or 2 people, if that feels right for you. But yeah, that's, hopefully no one has questions. I tried to be as specific and detailed as possible. If you're not into details, I think you could figure it out. I think you get the gist of it. But yeah, I'll give you all time to do that, and then in 5 minutes I'll come back and let you know you could transition if you're ready.